Welcome everyone. So let me do a quick introduction. Just a couple of slides. Nothing, nothing major, nothing too heavy, so to speak. It's going to be a lovely roundtable today, and of course, a great first-time collaboration between CMX Connect Istanbul and the CMX Connect Los Angeles, LA, the city of angels, so to speak, and the city on the two continents, which is just great. And it's so great to have folks from Los Angeles here, and of course my dear co-hosts from Istanbul. So here, and I hope it is, because you're really curious about the community, if that is the case. This is an event of CMX Virtual Connect series. So basically, CMX is one of the world's largest community management professional networks in the world, and the CMX Connect is their program in different countries and different cities. Of course, this was before the pandemic. It's now all virtual. Of course, we are now joining from 4 corners of the world, probably. But then again, we fiercely maintain our local character, heritage, culture, so to speak, and that's why we have chapters related to cities. But of course, you're welcome to join any. We have some guidelines. Of course, you don't have to adhere to all of them, but we'd love you if you did. If you're talking, if you're actually going to be up on screen, be sure your camera's turned on, close any distracting applications, use the chat box on the right-hand side to ask questions and leave comments. You'll have a Q&A tab. Grab your favorite snack, drink, wherever you are in the world. In the LA, it's breakfast time. Here, it's 7 p.m. So therefore, depending on your time of day, grab your dinner, breakfast, snack, anything, and then be sure to join us. So as I said, it's the local chapter network of the world. We have more than 60 chapters. That number is slightly out of date. Actually, there's many more, as had many more chapters joining us in the last couple of years when, through the pandemic, when the online events boomed. But anyway, we have, the common denominator is our love for community and the love for community professional thoughts and work and concepts that we discuss through our events. So we have some goals, again, some general goals, but some really nice and exciting goals nonetheless. Basically, we have, we would like you to connect, we would like you to learn, and we would like you to advocate, of course, community management. So basically, these are the goals that we actually have in our, CMX Connect arrangement. So anyway, Istanbul chapter, and this was founded in 2020 by me, and then afterwards Esra joined and a couple more co-hosts. 3 of us are here today. We have some additional goals, basically, which are to be Turkey's leading platform on community management, because we're the only one. So we would like to lead. Why not? We would like to become the leading resource and network for all community managers, professional, whether you're first time, in this profession, or you're already somebody who's already experienced. So, and of course, to be the first port of call for organizations looking for community professionals and to advocate management as a profession. Again, because we are in a unique position of being the only community in Turkey that is focused on community management, we have these additional goals that we've sort of, agreed for ourselves. If you would like to follow us, if you would like to also read, if you speak Turkish, if you're really looking for any work, any resources on community management, actually you can go to this link and then follow our Medium page, where we try to share a community management related article every month on our Medium channel. Events. We actually started in 2020 in October, and then basically we've progressed onto some very cool, interesting events. Even collaborating with the CMX Book Club chapter, hosting the Community Supremo, Jonah Bacon. And of course, we've celebrated our birthday in September of 2021, our first birthday with Beth McIntyre, who heads the CMX community. But of course, today we're joined by two other community supremos, which we'll tell you a little bit more about in the next couple of minutes. We were involved in past events, the CMX Spark last year, which was anemia concentrated, anemia focused conference, and of course the CMX Summit, which has been done virtually for the last couple of years, but is one of the biggest in-person community management events around the planet. This is us. That's me. Özge is not with us today due to a number of reasons, but of course we send regards to her, remotely like this. Jaren is our backend developer for the day. She's handling the chats, and you have already probably read her messages. Esra and I are here, of course. Esra, how are you today?
Doing great. I'm super excited about it. So first of all, hello everyone. Welcome. I want to thank you, each one of you, for joining us tonight. And Esra from Istanbul here. Sorry, I'm just hearing myself, but I will try to go. So I'm one of the hosts of the CMX Connect Istanbul, currently working as a software engineer, meanwhile leading and supporting some developer communities. I love building communities and being part of it. Looking forward to hear about measurements as a junior. So please feel free to ask questions using the Q&A tab on the right tab. So we will answer them as possible. Thank you.
Here, Esra, and of course, Jaren is with us. And but of course, the superstars of today are coming from exactly from the other side of the planet. If you were to sort of just dig a hole from where we are and just come out from the other side of the planet. Therefore, it's I don't know. It's one way to present Los Angeles. I don't know why I've done it that way, but it was a good introduction to have the Los Angeles chapter with us. And Jenny and Chris are with us. Jenny, Chris, hello, and good morning where you are. How are you?
Hi, Oker. Good morning. And you need to adjust that picture add some rain today. It's raining in Los Angeles. Rare occasion, y'all.
It doesn't happen that often. Everybody always celebrates when it rains. It's kind of dry and sunny. We don't complain though with the sun.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, great to be here, everybody. Thank you, Iker.
Yes.
It's good to have you here. So can you tell us a little bit more about CMX Connect Los Angeles, because there's some exciting things about it coming up.
Yes. Well, let me first say that we know that this chapter was active years ago. I think the last event might have been in 2017 or even 2019. So if any of you are rejoining, welcome, and we'll be excited to see you again as Chris and I get things going. We are hoping to have our first in-person event in May. So keep an eye out for emails about that. And then we'd also be open to having more hosts, just like, so jealous of the Istanbul chapter with all the hosts y'all have. And we would love to welcome more people to be a host if you want to be. And so just get in touch with Chris or I, or say something in the chat here, and I'll follow up with you. And we'll come together, and you'll have direct input on what it is we are going to be planning together. So, but keep an eye out. We are revitalizing this chapter, and we're really psyched about it, right, Chris?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the backstory too is that I'm originally from Chicago in the Midwest in the United States, so I came out actually for the role that I'm in today at Esri, and came out to Southern California, and I was like, man, we need to, because there's a lot of really great companies doing community, but we didn't have really anybody kind of organizing that. So I've been wanting to do this for a long time. So I'm really excited to partner with Jenny and hopefully get some more community going in the Los Angeles area, rain or shine, that is. And no matter where you are in LA, because I know LA it's expansive, and but I think we can get a really good community going out here. So we're excited to kick that off.
Great to have you here, and this is a very exciting event for us to cross collaborate, and of course with you, and hopefully this will be a really good event to let's say to be a prequel for you for the revitalization of the Los Angeles chapter, because we know that there's so many exciting things that can be done over there, and we're fully supporting, and certainly It's an honor to collaborate today. And without further ado, let's dive into today's talk, which is something very, very interesting. We're going to be talking about qualitative measurements, qualitative metrics, so to speak. So I will be stopping my screen share, and I will go back to the split screen that we actually have. And it's great that a lot of people have joined because I haven't actually seen them. So let me just kick off the conversation, so to speak. So of course. This was a very interesting topic because we wanted to have something interesting, something different in terms of discussing the metrics, which is the theme for the CMX Connect chapters for March. It was the March Metrics Madness, so to speak. So, of course, it is one of one of the biggest things, one of the biggest issues, and one of the biggest advantages, one of the biggest things that we can actually improve in the community management, that is to measure the community's impact in terms of metrics. So we all know about quantitative metrics, the number of members, the number of the number of people who are active, and also all sorts of other things, because all the platforms that we manage the communities are providing some sort of quantitative metrics anyway. But there's some downsides to that, and there's of course a lot of material, a lot of thoughts, a lot of concerns, so to speak, whether the quantitative metrics are good metrics for communities. And today's discussion is hopefully going to be a good extension to that, so that we can have a good representation of the community's value and the metrics and the impact that we would like to measure. So one of the things that actually struck me when I was trying to, let's say, strategize for a community that I was responsible of, is of course, I mentioned in the quantitative metrics, and of course, there's some other things that come across if you're not setting them up properly. And one of them was called the engagement trap by our beloved Richard Millington, who's a British strategist, community strategist that we follow and admire. So he always says that if the age-old saying, if a measure becomes the goal, then it stops being a good measure. So basically, if you're putting, let's say, the number of active members in the center of all your strategy, then you start to lose some of the meaning of the value that this number of active people are going to be bringing to your community. So, of course, if that happens, then there will be a situation where people from your team, in terms of community management and strategy, may actually start to twist the numbers so that the numbers actually look great on paper or on screen, so to speak, not actually telling the whole story. So it's the feeling in the community that we would like to measure, and this is where the qualitative metrics come in. So this is the prequel to all our discussions. So let me just turn it over to our beloved roundtable members to have their take first on the qualitative metrics and what are they, and where do they fit in the overall picture of community management.
Who wants to go first? All right, I'll start. I'll jump in.
I'm happy to. Go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
Chris, you go ahead. I'm going to save my raspy voice thanks to the LA rain. You go first.
That LA rain strikes again, right? Yeah. So what I was going to mention too. Again, this is a really, really great topic. I'm really excited to dive into it because I think like it is, explained in the title. No one really talks about it, but I think when I was thinking about this topic and kind of my trajectory into community, and then kind of where I feel a lot of things don't get talked about is in the storytelling. So Iker, you mentioned a little bit about that, about being able to tell the story with the number side of data, the quantitative side of it. When you look at the quality, so much is dependent on stories, right? So I think that when you look at something, why we don't hear a lot about it, I think is something that storytelling is hard, because you have to look at the quantitative and go, okay, what is the story? And you have to be I don't know if it's an archaeologist, like dig it out and then here's the amazing dinosaur. I don't know if that's the greatest analogy, but you have to pull some sort of story out, some sort of narrative, and then you also have to be able to figure out, who's your audience. What kind of story do you need to tell with the data from that aspect. And then how do you go about getting the data out, right? So if I was to back up on what I just said and look at, because you could pull qualitative data in different ways. You can look at things and tell stories based off of just looking at what's happening in that story and combine that with the quantitative, or you can, which is what I think one of the most powerful ways is to talk to the actual community and through surveys and different things like that. But I think it's not talked about as much, partly because it's hard to do, and storytelling just in general is an art, and it takes time to get to do that, and it involves speaking, and it involves getting up in front of people and talking about things, or there's persuasion, and then there's an art to telling what story do you want to tell, right? If you watch a movie, those characters go through an arc, right? And you go through, and at the end, somebody is going to get excited, they're going to get inspired, and that's kind of the story that you have to tell. You have to persuade, you have to inspire. Like, that should be the goal of what you're going to be able to do with the qualitative side of it. What you get from the survey, what do you get from the focus groups, and pull that out and be able to go, okay, what are we going to do with that? And that a lot of it comes down to storytelling, again, which is difficult, challenging, but without great risk, great challenges, it doesn't come a great reward. So if you do it well, you can take someone who's a skeptic in community at the executive level, and you can turn them to a champion if you do that well, if you take qualitative. So I think those are some initial thoughts that I was thinking about.
Jenny, what do you think?
Yes, I think yes. I mean, no, okay. And the most basic form, I think, of qualitative measurement as anything that's non-numerical, and so what comes down to then is those stories, is that feedback that you still have to summarize in some way. You just can't take, transcripts of these stories and these interviews to your executives. You like, see what they said. Yeah, read it here, So it is tough. Chris is right. I think one of the reasons it's one of the things we don't talk about is because it's not as scalable as other aspects. It's not as scalable as it is to send a survey out with 10 questions and then get all the pretty graphs that you can just cut and paste into an executive presentation and say, and look at this feedback. So, but Chris hit all the rest of the major points. So, but CMX Istanbul, what about you all? How do you all define qualitative measurement?
That I would certainly try and think about is of course having a general overview, seeing the forest and not the trees in terms of the metrics. So I'm going to quote another British let's say community supremacist, John Bacon. He always says, when you're defining metrics for a community, he just like me, he doesn't like that much, sort of airplane dashboard style, metrics. So you have hundreds of metrics you're trying to track at the same time, and it's just a bit of an overload. I agree the same. Some people may not agree. Maybe they're, much more happier to track it that way, which is fine. But I like his approach where he says, I'm just quoting his tweet here. Instead of asking what should we measure, we should ask what questions don't I have answers for, and pick the minimum set of metrics that help us to find answers to these questions. Fully agree with that, in the sense that the metrics have to be simple, and they just have to be few enough to be able to tell the story of the community. This, I believe, is where the qualitative metrics come in, because they actually help you to tell the story of the community, or the story that you would like to tell that would ultimately lead to a value. This is the sort of things that we're always discussing with Esra, with Jeren, because the value is what you put in the center. And I think qualitative metrics, people are sort of staying away from them, but they actually make a good, pretty good tool to to tell that value story.
I really like what Vince said in the chat here. Qualitative equals themes. Yes, pick up on those themes. And sometimes like quantitative data won't sometimes it will and sometimes it won't give you that.
So I think we will start with our next question here, and it is like, why don't we quantitative measurement?
Yeah, I guess I'll go on that one too. I think it's a skill that's developed over time. And when I was thinking about that question in prep for this session, I was just thinking of my own story, and how, I love watching movies, and I came into community management through content and through journalism, and I think that definitely speaks to, I think, some of the things that should be in the toolbox of community managers, community professionals, because in journalism and if you watch your favorite movies, they're your favorite movies because they tell a compelling story, right? So I think, again, it's difficult to do that, but it's a skill that develops over time, and you have to practice it, just like anything else, whether it's any kind of sport or any kind of skill. You get better as you do it. So I think, again, we don't hear much about it. Unfortunately, we don't, because when you do get good at it, and when you do figure it out and figure out the right time to use it, because there's a time to use qualitative data and there's a time to use quantitative, depending on who you're talking to, right? It could be a stakeholder that just cares about numbers and give them numbers, right? But some, the executive wants, or stakeholder wants, to hear a story, right? And I can tell you a lot of examples about that. Then you have to be able to tell them a story, and they don't want to hear numbers. They want to hear, something that's going to inspire them. What did the customers say, about the product and the community, and how did the community come together, and all that kind of stuff. So I think, again, we don't hear a lot about it, because of the level of difficulty in it. But I think there's a huge opportunity, to help community professionals, build up their storytelling muscles and skills and abilities, because I think that is something that can really help, further the awareness of what communities can do. Because if you can connect how a community, changes a company or changes the customer experience, and if a community professional can explain that articulately, just like, somebody's watching their favorite movie, and then, wow, it's just like it inspires them. If you can translate that same power and that same ability to tell that arc, and to get somebody, from a skeptic to a champion, or get them, to increase their buy-in through storytelling, then that's good. But I think, again, it's the reason we don't hear a lot about it is because, well, the other thing that just popped in my head too is that the platforms that we use don't necessarily, I mean, they help us get the data out, right? And then we have to figure it out. But the platforms and a lot of the tools we use, they're designed to help us extract the data. But on the back end, like Jenny was just saying earlier, you have to be able to, to pull that out. And there's not a whole lot of platforms that do that. I mean, you can create a Wordle cloud, right? But and it'll show you themes or something, Wordles, right? We still use those. But again, it comes down to some of these, they call them soft skills, but I don't know if that's the right word to say, but it's a soft skill. It's very important. So again, we don't like to talk about things that are hard to do in most cases. So, but we should. I think we should really, challenge each other in the community professional industry, and I think it's a good challenge because it's a game changer, just to be able to do that qualitative measurement and that storytelling.
Something Chris just said made me think of a theme song for this event, y'all. We don't talk about qualitative, no. Yeah, I just went there. I just went there. Sorry.
We don't want it to be taken down because of copyright issues, but it's one of the ones.
That was an original.
Yeah, it is an original. No, it's just there was one event where I was. There was one event where I was actually the guest of Las Vegas, and I sang the Viva Las Vegas song very, very badly, of course, admittedly, by Elvis. And we worried for a couple of minutes that it will be taken down, but of course I was so bad that it just didn't. So, but anyway, let me shuffle around. Let me just put my thoughts on this one, because Chris actually hit the nail on the head with regards to the platforms over there. It's just the platforms are not providing you with this data. The platforms are, of course, designed to give you more quantitative data, because, of course, in the background they're sort of counting it. So they're, unless they are very, very complicated and AI driven, so to speak, where you can actually set them up to tell a certain story, or some of the things that you're tracking to tell the story. Certainly, they're not going to be able to give you some quantitative data, so to speak. Qualitative data, so to speak. So therefore, I think it's that inavailability, that tendency of the platforms is one of the factors, and the other one is, of course, is to try and come up with that story. It's sometimes it's a little bit difficult to to put that story up to, let's say, to upper management if you're actually sponsoring an organization within if you're an organization that sponsors this community. Therefore, sometimes it's just a bit of a short-sightedness. So, people are much more inclined to give meaning to the quantitative data, but all of us know that community is a long-term game, and it's all about this values, of course, delivered through a long time. And to be honest with you, and this is going to be probably the remainder of my answers are going to be the same. It's probably better to track some hybrid metrics, such as some quantitative metrics to deliver qualitative metrics or data. Allow me to elaborate, but I will elaborate more in the other answers, of course. Things like the number of stories that are being generated through a feeling in a community. So the number of success stories, for example, the number of developers that find a job, or they just get they put on top of a pedestal where they can actually expose their skills to do what they want to do in their professional lives, for example. That could be a very interesting metric for a developer community. Of course, I'll elaborate more, but I'd rather not, and I will just pass the baton to Jenny, going through the Olympic theme.
Well, I mentioned one reason why I don't think that that qualitative is that popular or talked about, and of course I had my song, but I also want to say that I think when people are trying to educate themselves online and learn about it, there's just not as much information out there as there is for how to put together an easy or brief quantitative summary. So I think that's difficult. And in fact, even just trying to come up with relevant links to leave with you all and our attendees today as giveaways or as a takeaway, sorry, should I say, there's just not a ton out there that does a great job about talking in depth about qualitative measurement in a community. So maybe this will now be the link, the link to this on YouTube, right? This presentation. I do want to give a shout out to Giuliano, who just made a great comment on a way that he's tracking qualitative metrics in his group, is to look at the most used word/terms. And that's really, really smart, Giuliano. And makes me also wonder, do you go and look at the sentiment as well? Because yes, getting the words is one thing, how the words are being used. We could have a whole nother session, y'all, on sentiment analysis, but we won't go there. And then I also want to give a shout out to Vince, who makes a very strong point that qualitative is not often seen as valid. And yes, I have worked with executives before who, are like, well, this is your take on summarizing all of these people's stories. Yes, you paid me for that. I'm a strategist. But for some reason, and I wonder why that is, and that might take us on a tangent if we went into that. I'll let you, Ilka, decide if you want to, but it makes me wonder, why is it not trusted as much? Why is qualitative data not trusted as much? So thanks for bringing that up, Vince. That's a good point.
So I want to disrupt here and junior question. So it is like, as you mentioned about your executive manager, about this is your idea and this is actually your summary of it. So as a junior, I'm wondering about how we can decide this is a reliable story or fits our vision that we want to highlight. How can I decide as a junior whether it's worth to share, and how can I document it? How will I take notes for it? Will I write it? Where will I write it actually?
Yeah, it's a great question. One of the things, before I answer that question, you guys maybe think of another. I know I mentioned a lot when I was explaining about the, sharing stories internally with, with an executive or the stakeholder or the inside, but you really should think about qualitative also for your growth of the community, because if you capture, hey, I love this community, or this community helps me solve this problem, and what your customers and community members are saying, like that's going to inspire people to join, right? And to engage. So I think that that's another reason to do it, because it can help with growth and with engagement, and not just on the measurement side of like, is this working? Are we achieving? It can also inspire and grow. So I just wanted to mention that, because I think there's, we're maybe heavy on the other side. I was like, oh wait, no, there's this other use, that we can and I've used that before. Yeah, but to your answer, or to your question, Ezra, I think you can have a lot of different uses, for the qualitative side, and I think that's important too.
Yeah, and to Ezra's question and Vince's point about really just, okay, what do you do then? How do you make sure that the quantitative summary or information is seen as valid and treated, taken seriously? I think there's a couple of tactics that I like to use, Ezra. Like, first off, I really like to point out the most common themes I heard from the majority of people. So yes, this is qualitative data, but here I'm pointing out now to you what the majority of people said. So this is the stuff you really want to listen to. I also want to point out any particular items that people said that directly touch on any company goals or anything that is top of mind for the company at that time, and make sure I point that out. And then visually, when I'm presenting this, I also like to do it with slides, and I want to make sure that I have the words of my community members up on the slide. So I take some of the strongest quotes and put them up and make sure that they are up while I am explaining a certain point. I want people to see and read and hear the words that came from these qualitative interviews. So that's just a couple of tactical things that I do to try to, yes, show that this is valid, and you should take this information seriously.
I'm really excited because it just coincided with my homework. I didn't know if I was question, but it's a very valid, very important question. Again, as strategists, we use a mixture of, sort of frameworks. Some of them have been completely imported from, management consultancy work, and some others from project management and so forth. But there's of course a few that are custom made for the community management bit. And the framework that I absolutely love and I try to use in many of my projects is Fever Bees. Richard Billington, once again, Fever Bees community strategy framework. There, of course, it's it could be a whole lot of a different event to talk about it, but there's four bits, or there are four components of it, so to speak. The first one is the goal. Of course, that's the value of the community. That's the absolute pure value, pure commercial value of the community, so to speak, if you were a sponsoring organization. And of course, those are the objectives, are the actions that you would like the members to perform to deliver that value. And now we are coming into a strategy within a community strategy. Bear me with this. It's the strategy within the community strategy framework of Fever Bee are the feelings. So those are the feelings that the community members will have to feel, so that they feel compelled to do the actions, the objective, to deliver you the value that is the goal. And of course, then you have the tactics to get the community members to feel those feelings, or let's say to achieve those strategies. So this is one framework that you can actually find out more about, and then basically implement in your community strategy, so that you can actually incorporate very well the basis for the qualitative metrics that you are going to be tracking, i.e. sentiments, the feelings, the other work, and everything else. So this is just one way out of many ways, but certainly it just needs some thought on top of it.
So when we mention about the stories, stuff going on. So maybe it's a time to share a story when qualitative measurement proved to be beneficial for your community. Who want to start? Please.
I'll do my best Hermione Granger right now. Oh.
Yes.
Okay. So end of last year, I had this fabulous client, nonprofit, nonprofit who the leadership team thought, this community stuff sounds very cool. We think we want one. But, we kind of just don't know where to start. I told them, I'm like, all right, I think we should do some, qualitative research first and talk to your member or your volunteers. And that's what they would regard as their members. So let's talk to your volunteers first about this, right? So I'm glad they agreed to that, because what they were prepared to do before me talking to them is just jump ahead, look at a platform and go ahead and start something up, right? And so I was like, no, take some steps back. So working with them and then holding these extensive interviews that I usually do and talking to their volunteers, it became clear that their volunteers were actually not interested in kind of connecting with other members. They were actually interested in some key things they wanted more from the nonprofit on. But and it also had to do with demographics. Now the average age was 65. So that makes a big difference when you're talking about, kind of creating any digital tool, right? So I do believe that when their average age gets to, or maybe the millennial generation or so, then they might have a volunteer base that's more interested in an online community. But really, without that research, though, they would have gone and spent time and money on something and probably ended up with a dead zone of a community, because that's not what their most active volunteers, that's not what people really were asking for. So in that regard, qualitative measurement saved them time and money. And this is a nonprofit, they're doing some wonderful things. So they could put that money now towards some other wonderful things. And you know what? They're not closing the book on community. They might do another survey in a couple of years and reevaluate. But it's just, I just commend them for, taking the time to spend the time and money on the research phase, which is so key. That's my story.
Sticking to it. Is that your?
Great. Yeah, I was really bummed that they didn't want to. Then it's like, well, we don't work for any further, because I'm telling you that your volunteers don't want a community, but I really wanted to continue working with them. Oh well, maybe one day.
Do you have any stories that you can share with us, especially in the Esri community, because that's an award-winning community? This is something that we haven't but they won the CMX Awards of Community of the Year last year, was it? So that was the case.
Yeah, we have a lot of stories. I think when I think about qualitative story, what we're talking about here, it plays a huge role in leading up to the fact that we're really excited and humbled, proud that we won that award. And a lot of qualitative research data went into that to get to that stage, right? Because we did migrate platforms. We had to go from a platform that wasn't working for us. It was kind of handcuffing us in a lot of different ways. And what we did actually, when we did a ton of qualitative research, we engaged our members, we engaged our top members. And actually, when I joined Esri, there was a little bit of uncertainty, confusion, and not a whole lot of wide scale buy-in about what we were doing or what we needed to do with the community. So I did a lot of listening on a small scale, listening on a larger scale, with executives or with stakeholders, with the community. I got to know a lot of different members, and I started to hear things and patterns and things like that. So that was kind of my first part of getting to know the community, was qualitative research of my own, to learn who these members are and things like that. And I think that that then led us to, right before we migrated, we wanted to make sure that we were going to move to a platform that the community wanted and needed, and that the business needed to do that. So qualitative took a big part of that, because we had to, I say, it was a fight and a battle, and it probably would make a really interesting Netflix series of kind of how, oh, are they going to go with this platform or that platform, or no, IST or a community team, and all these different things were kind of swirling around. But what helped us navigate through that was when we were questioned about what platform we needed, or why were we going to do this or design it that way, we pulled out our qualitative research, and we pulled out, this is what the customers want, or this is what we're trying to do, so that was directly from them. And what they actually did, because we used the qualitative research to re-engage staff, to re-engage customers, because they weren't quite sure what they were going to be doing, or even the authoritative nature of the community. So through the process of saying to our top users, what do you want this new community to look like, or what do you want to do, how are you using it, what do you wish it would do? So we spent months really talking with them, focus groups, and it not only allowed us to get like the actual data that we needed, but through that qualitative research, we built deeper relationships with staff, and we were able to have really good deeper buy-in conversations with leadership. And then we re-engaged and grew we call them MVPs. That's our top contributors that answer a lot of the questions within the community. So we had a chance to re-engage them as well. And it also, there was some really great contributions on our community team that allowed people on my team to grow in their own profession as community builders, to go and figure this out. So it's really exciting too when you get into qualitative research. It can help you navigate tough conversations, and it did. Like, I don't think we would be where we're at today if we in qualitative research in the way that we did, because it was that benefit of the relationship building, being able to pull things out in tough conversations. Because I would get emails, I would get pulled into conversations, on short notice, or turn of a dime or whatever. I'm like, oh, I pulled something right from our research and I brought it into a meeting, where I was able to do that. So that's our story. And I could go on and on, but it really was important. And like I was saying earlier, it was hard to do that, but so much of getting that long-term buy-in on community, and trying to integrate into the business, and getting your customers more engaged and letting them know that you're listening, and building up that experience. So much can come from when you're reaching out to them in that qualitative process. So again, like Jenny said, and Bruno or whatever, we don't talk about that enough, and we should, right? It's behind the wall, right? That's where Bruno was hanging out, I think, right? So we need to break that wall. Hopefully we don't get any copyright issues, but Disney likes the shout outs though.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing these stories. But after listening this story, inspire and encourage some of us like me to give it a shot and start. And as a person who has never planned or implemented it like me, so how can we start this?
Oh, Chris, I think we lost your audio for a second there. All right.
How's that? Is that better?
Oh, you're back. Yeah.
Yep, you're back. Fantastic.
And were you saying something, Chris?
How you can start?
Oh no, I was just giving. Did you guys want to take that question? That's what I was saying.
All right. How to get started? Okay, this is what I like to do. Oh gosh, what is my first step? It's all running in my head here. All right. So if you're new to conducting qualitative research and measurement of your community members, a couple things you want to do first. Recognize that this is going to take some time and effort. So don't try to be productive and efficient with this. I think one-on-one time is best. I know some people have done this in a roundtable format with a couple of members at a time. Then in the roundtable format, I have also seen groupthink kind of take over. And then, I worry that people don't feel like they can really tell their truth about what they're experiencing in the community, what they like or don't like. So if you can dedicate one-to-one time, at least 30 minutes, pick anywhere from 8 to 10 people in your community that you want to do these interviews with. Now, these 8 to 10 people that you want to speak with should vary in their stages and journey in the community where they're at. So one of them should be maybe an MVP, a longtime member, somebody who is just like your star ambassador, your ideal community member. It should then another person should be somebody brand new to the community, or maybe only logged in once or twice, and then pick some people in the middle of that journey, as well, because you want to talk to people who represent different phases of their journey in the community and their and the experiences they've had with it. Talk to people who've been to your virtual events, talk to people who've never been to your virtual events, so you want to lay out some criteria and then try to fit people who 8 to 10 people who fit that criteria. And then from there, you want to make a list of questions, and and again, depending on what it is you're going to be talking about, it can be about, if you're going to be redesigning the community and so you might want to ask them about what information they take in most, what information they want to see first. If you're asking them about gamification and what works for them, you want to talk to them about how they like to be incentivized. It all depends on what's the nature of these interviews and what you're trying to get out of them. And then Chris, where would you take it from there?
Yeah, no, I echo everything that you're saying. I think so much of what qualitative data you start with depends on what you're trying to achieve. And I was thinking in terms of, if you start small and just start to think about how you can incorporate qualitative data into your regular reporting. Like we report quarterly and yearly, and we have what I call a balance of hard metrics and soft metrics. So, hard metrics are the quantitative data, the numbers and the charts and the percentages and things like that. And then the qualitative data for me is the soft metrics, the storytelling. What was the big story? What's going to inspire, touch the mind, touch the heart. The mind sometimes can be the numbers, and the heart is the part where oh wow, that customer said that, or they weren't able to solve this software issue or make this great project with our software, and if it weren't for the community, right? So what's that, and balance that out in your reporting, and just do it little by little, right? I mean, Jenny's giving you great examples of kind of how to figure out which qualitative data to use depending on what you're trying to achieve. And I would add on by saying, just gradually include that, include a story or two in your reports when you share them out. I wouldn't share out a report without some type of story, some type of quote, some type of that shows, yeah, this is what's the big story this quarter. Was it at an event? Did someone come up to the booth? Did a product team get a great idea, into the community? Just one or two. That's really all you need, and you can build on that. So that's an example of how to just kind of gradually get started. Jenny was giving some great examples of, and sort of what I mentioned earlier about, we were getting ready to migrate to a new platform. That's a huge lift, right? And that calls for a different set of toolboxes of going into the qualitative data toolbox, right? But I think it's best, and I would encourage everybody to gradually start and figure out what stories you can pull out each quarter or each month, or however you report, and include those with your report, and just make a goal to say, you're not going to share a report without a qualitative story, or analyzing some type of qualitative data and putting that into your report. And then that kind of builds, because I've gotten great responses from staff, even from customers as well, because they were like, wow, and they didn't mention the numbers part, they mentioned the story part. They focus on that. So, and that it can snowball with that. So just get started and figure out one way to include that into your reports. I think that would help.
I hope you'll find interesting, very interesting way of maybe trying to gather that data, or trying to gather that data from your community members. So one of the biggest problems that I see, I'm not a big fan of surveys and these sort of NPS things, and of course they are all proven and quite important tools that you can actually use, but there are times where they fall short one way or the other. together in telling the sentiments or the feelings within the community. So one of the tactics that I actually employ is to try and see if I can put myself into the shoes of the community members, and then organize a number of events where the community members would be compelled to join and actually be compelled to tell the stories. So let's say you have a community where you would feel that this community is helping to advance their careers. Let's make it a developer event. So, and why not have a number of events where you are able to, you're able to invite a number of people, speaking about careers, about certain jobs, about some difficulties people are starting with their careers with, or maybe, changing jobs and other things. So depending on the particularities of your community, you can set up the scene just right so that people can feel comfortable, people can feel compelled, and people are, they're actually motivated and excited to share their stories and their expectations. In my opinion, everything in life is about expectation management. It doesn't matter what level you are, it doesn't matter what you do. I think a big part of what we do every day as communicators, which we are as community managers or community members, is to manage expectations, ours and other people's. So I think if you set the scene just right, whether it's just a Slack or other platform, all the channels and all the discussions and all the prompts that you're actually giving to the community as the community manager, because I love this saying, we are the DJ that keep people dancing as community managers. So if you want to keep people dancing, you've got to make sure that you read the room right and then put the tracks that keep the people dancing. So therefore, if you set those right, I think then people are very compelled to tell you the stories or tell you what they expect. And then you can set the qualitative metrics on top of all those, and then make sure that you guide the community for the mutual benefits for everyone.
Right, thank you. And actually, it inspired me to ask, okay, we got the stories, now we know, we gather from them, we make the whole. So, but how do we put this data into the.
Chris, I see you shaking your head, and I think that, I mean, in your role, I know you must be doing this on a very regular basis.
Yeah. I mean, we like I mentioned earlier, it's part of our reporting, and we didn't really talk about roles on the community team as far as like who does this kind of stuff. But I think this is a good point to kind of talk about how community teams have evolved. Like we have an operations side with our team, and we have community programs and experiences, side of our team, and those two teams work together. Part of the teams work together because the engagement, the content does the storytelling and the writing piece, but the operations does the data and pulling that out. So I think it's important to kind of that's how I see a lot of this conversation kind of playing in, is like what's the role of the team, right? And I know there's a lot of community professionals out there that don't have the luxury of having a team like that as we scale. That's why I think it's important, if you are a one-person show trying to wear many hats, putting this into practice is really about, like I mentioned earlier, figuring out how to incrementally get some small wins, and just incorporating it into how you look at it, right? And even how you moderate the community. Always looking for those stories and looking for themes and looking at what's coming in through the community, whether it be through through data, but it's just the practice of and figuring out how to put together the specific reports. But when you think about the team, people on the team, for us, we have an operations role that is really designed to pull the data out, but the other side of the team has to work to kind of figure out what the story is. And one example is that no one was telling our story of the Esri community. So I put the idea out of like saying, well, we need to we had a really rich story, and we had to tell that story and publish it. and put it in decks or something that people could see and experience, and new members could understand what they were coming into. So, that's something that is practical, publishing a story of your community, putting into reports. Like these are practical things, and again, just making sure that you're balanced in your storytelling. You're not too, or in your data gathering, that you're not too heavy on the quantitative. You have the qualitative with that. But I just can't not to get overwhelmed with where to start, but just go, think a story. Think what is going to move somebody to that. And I think the other practical piece is that, if you're new to a company, you approach qualitative data gathering and reporting differently. Because when I joined Esri, I did a lot of listening, right? And you really can't share good qualitative data if you haven't listened first, because they kind of go hand in hand. Because when you share the story, you need to share the story in the way that fits what that person, that audience has said that they're looking for. So you meet with them, you say, oh, this are what Ike was saying about what's the expectations of the community. So you kind of catalog that, you listen to that, and then you go away and then you look at the data and you go, okay, I just heard this story. This story needs to be told to that person because that's what they're looking for, and then I think there's a lot of connecting of, the pre-listening, then you actually listen to the community, take the qualitative data and just reinforce or illuminate, right? Or, just show them something maybe that they didn't know before. But I think the listening, pre-listening, and then the actual listening and pulling that back and sharing that, I think those go hand in hand. And those are some practical ways, Ezra, I think that can really, like you can get into that in again, just incrementally.
Thank you for replying this. And yes, I think you can hear me. I would just like to say we asked already lots of questions about lots of stuff, but I'm sure that the audience here might have some questions. So feel free to share your Twitter handle so that they can follow you, they can reach you out with they can DM you. So thank you for today. So maybe if you want to go for closing.
Jenny wrote this a number of times, and we can go on. There's been so many things that were said today that they can actually have their own event, so to speak. And Chris has made some really, really good remarks, and especially the last one was really on the point. You can't really share good qualitative data until you've listened first, which was something that we've sort of been saying, things similarly all around it. So again, because it's the morning where you are, and we hope that you've had a good morning, you've heard about some exciting things from Jenny, Chris, Esra, and myself. But we've allocated just an hour for this. We were looking for some questions, but hopefully, if you have any questions, if they haven't come to your head right now, you can always, ask us through Twitter on our own handle, and of course to Jenny and to Chris, to Esra and to myself, and we'll do our best to answer them within the limitations of the platform. So this has been a very valuable conversation, because the qualitative data, for some reason, or the metrics, they're not, getting the limelight that they're supposed to get. In our opinion, they should. Hopefully you've seen the glimpse of the value that they can actually offer in a way. So again, we are honored that, LA has come to visit. There's a direct flight as well, Jenny and Chris, if you would like, it's operated by our national, well, more than happy. Summer's coming this way. We do have palm trees every now and then, even though it's slightly colder over here. But we would like to thank you for coming. Thank you for collaborating. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and your experiences and the stories about the qualitative data. And of course, my co-hosts Esra and Jaren, who've carried this event on their shoulders, all along. But the most important, as always, it goes to our dear listeners who've taken an hour of their time this morning, this afternoon, this evening, where they are, and then they listen to us, and we hope that you got something really, really cool and nice out of this event. We're recording this. Hopefully the recording will be available soon for you to re-watch and maybe just take down some of the things that you've already heard about. We are CMX Connect Istanbul and CMX Connect LA, two members of the CMX Connect network around the planet. We would love to have you as members on both chapters. You can always find us on the corners of the internet. We would like to say thank you. Jenny, Chris, any last words from you before we close?
Thank you so much. And if you're watching the replay of this, please follow the LA chapter at events.cmxhub.com/Los-Angeles. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you so much again. Yeah, thank you, Iker and Ezra, for putting this together. Thank you for the Istanbul community, CMX community. You guys are awesome. And again, yeah, feel free to reach out to Jenny and I. If you have any other questions, we love helping out all their community professionals. Get good at that storytelling. That's what gotta do that, right? And hopefully we see more of our LA community as well. And yeah, thank you so much. It's been fun.
Thanks again, Esra. Also, thank you for asking the questions. It's been brilliant, Jaren. Again, thank you, and everyone. Thanks for coming, and we hope to see you in the next event of Istanbul and LA. So feel free to join both, and let's give a support to LA so that they can actually start delivering amazing events, which we'll all be a cool supporter of. Thanks, everyone, and all the very best.